On 3rd and 3, they protect Brady. Scans the field and lets it fly. It's Evans. It's a touchdown.
This is the Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty. Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo! And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host from BucsNation.com, Mr. Evan Wanish, and of course, joining us today, very special guest, good friend of the show, pleasure to have you back. It's our guy Gene from Buc What Ya Heard. Today we are breaking down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Week 3 loss to the Green Bay Packers. Saying it's a frustrating game would be a bit of an understatement here. 14-12, your final score in that one. Not sure if there's any records for scoregami, not that I heard of. But, the Bucs only putting up 12 points. Definitely not what a lot of people thought it would be coming into this game. I know that I had expected fireworks, and we certainly didn't get any of those. But just an offensive slog. It was painful at times to sit through and watch this team try and put something together on offense. But both sides of the ball, I thought it was a rough start for the defense. We'll talk about how they were able to bounce back and only hold Green Bay to 14 points. There's a lot to cover. There is so much to cover. And I feel like early on in the season, you learn a lot more about your team through losses like this than you do wins like Dallas. And I know we learned a lot about this team against New Orleans. But in the long run, we were talking about it before the podcast. Gene, you had kind of alluded to it. Week 5, Week 6 is really where you get a general idea of where this team is going to be headed in the long run, especially now that health is such a factor. But Gene, let me get your thoughts first, just like an overall consensus from this game, because I have so much to say, but I could sit here and talk about it for 35 minutes straight. I'm not going to do that.
Well, first off, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. My takeaway from the game is it's a learning experience. You're going up against the Green Bay Packers, who a lot of people have picked them to go to the Super Bowl and potentially win. When you look at the injuries that you have and these backups and the meaningful reps they're getting, I thought that Tampa did better than I expected them to, just with the loss of talent. I mean, when you look and Russell Gage is your starting wide receiver, you've got Rashard Perryman, Scotty Miller. It reminds you a little bit of the Rams game in the playoffs and the huge drop-off that you had with wide receiver talent. And, the Bucs could never really truly recover from that, along with the other injuries. So to me, this is a great learning experience for the Bucs. And, again, it gives them something that they know that they need to work on, to be honest.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think a lot of people can agree that, just like you said, Gene, it was kind of similar to the Rams game in that, not only are you without wide receiver talent, but you're also still missing. You're down to your third string left tackle. I know in the Rams game, they were down to Josh Wells at right tackle, but and Brandon Walton, who had played well in New Orleans last week, struggled at times this week. And that's going to happen with an inexperienced player like that. And I think, there was a lot of encouraging things, but there was also some things. I wouldn't call this game frustrating. I would call it unfortunate because to me, it's unfortunate that the Bucs couldn't even have somewhat of a healthy offense, because I think even if they had like Mike Evans and Julio Jones, let's say they don't have Chris Godwin, I think they might have been able to squeak out a win. It might have been ugly, but I think they might have been able to squeak out a win. They didn't have enough. I mean, you want to know how bad it is. Cole Beasley, who was on the team for 5 days and practiced 3 times, he was on the field during the 2-point attempt. Like, that's how bad and how desperate they were for wide receiver depth. So, it was the losses that they had due to injuries, and you can't blame it all on injuries. They still had to play well. But the losses that they had due to injuries on the offensive side of the ball were just a bit too much to overcome against a Green Bay defense, which I think is one of the better ones in the NFL.
I mean, you go into this missing your starting left tackle and Donovan Smith. You miss Mike Evans, who's serving a 1-week suspension, should be back next week against Kansas City. You're missing Chris Godwin, who we all knew was going to miss this game. Julio Jones, they considered him a true game time decision. After it comes out, he's dealing with a partially torn PCL. So as soon as I saw that headline, I was like, oh yeah, there's no way he's playing today. So you go in there without Julio Jones. We can talk a lot about the practice squad wide receivers that were out there. But just like you had mentioned briefly, Evan, I mean, these guys just had to play better. Because what frustrates me, and this is where I get frustrated, and yeah, a lot of people can put this behind them already. We're already looking forward to Kansas City, given that game doesn't get moved due to the impending hurricane this week. But, I mean, you're looking ahead to Kansas City, but I get frustrated when I think about this Green Bay game because even though they lost the turnover battle, even though they had countless penalties that negated rhythm on offense, which they could not find for the entire game, even though all of that happened, they still had a chance to come back and win this game. You execute, you get the 2 point, you go to overtime. I'm not saying they would have won if they'd gone to overtime.
Overtime, it's a coin flip.
They had plenty of chances right there, and they just could not do it. Scotty Miller, I believe, had 5 targets, only 1 catch. He did not do a damn thing. There were certain guys on this team who were in roles to step up, Rashad Perryman being one of those. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to do it. It's hard to lump expectations on a guy like Cole Beasley, who's been on the team for less than a week, didn't get a ton of snaps, but he got 3 catches. He looked good. We also saw the debut of Kyle Rudolph, even though I think he got like 15% of the offensive snaps. But, I mean, these guys have to execute better because at the end of the day, I know that this team is coming together. I know that you're playing with reserves, but you have to play better.
Yeah. Real quick, we got to keep in mind that this could have playoff implications.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the season. This could have everything to do with seeding. This was a game that the Bucs needed to win.
Yep.
I mean, if you're talking about playoff, the big playoff picture, whereas Kansas City, not so much because they are an AFC team. So, again, we may be looking back on this game at the end of the year and saying, what if?
Yeah, I think I brought that up on the game preview show that I thought this game was bigger than a Kansas City game. Of course, obviously Kansas City is going to be on prime time Sunday Night Football, but and the Super Bowl rematch. But yeah, this game in terms of seeding, it could be huge. Right now it doesn't seem significant, but when you're sitting there week 16, week 17, and the Bucs are trying to get the potential 1 seed, if the Packers are standing in their way, you're going to look at that 2-point loss, and you're like you said, you're going to say, well, what if this would have gone different? What if this play would have done differently? And then the whole Bucs season could change. Because you're talking about a first round bye, or that's a big deal. So, it was definitely a tough one. Not only because you lost your first game of the year, but because that could have implications, like you said, down the line.
Well, unfortunately, too, the Bucs have kind of lucked out with timing like this before, but it seems like if you're going to pick a week to lose, I know you don't want to lose to Green Bay because of those long-term implications, but a couple of other teams you wanted to lose lost, right? The Saints lost this weekend. They dropped 1 to Carolina, so that puts them even further behind in the division race, which means these next couple of division games up here on the schedule, if the Bucs can go out there and play well enough to win those games, they could wrap this thing up by the time these two teams meet again later on in the season. All of that still yet to be determined, but let's dive into the offense a little bit more, and let's talk about the quarterback, Tom Brady, the man of the hour here. Kind of an interesting day for Brady. I don't think anyone's upset with him by any means. We talk a lot about the offensive struggles, but they are due in no part to TB12 under center. His day looked like this. 31 for 42, 271 yards, a touchdown, did not turn the ball over. With a 14-12 score, no way you would have told me that Brady was going to throw the ball 42 times, and that's only, 12 points as the result of that. I mean, it was clear in the first half of this game they wanted to establish the run, but, I mean, really only 12 carries, 35 yards for Leonard Fournette, so that kind of went away quickly. And in the second half, it felt like this team was just playing from behind. It felt like they were playing from behind more than they were. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Felt like it was a bigger deficit than it actually was.
Right. It was an 8-point game for most of the game. I know Green Bay had a hot start, and props to the defense. We'll talk to them shortly, but they got 14 points for the entire game. They did jack squat in the second half, and this team was still just out there really trying to throw the football to not a lot of success.
Well, and here's the thing. So they found success on the first drive. The first drive was one of their best drives of the year, right? They start off with a play action pass, the first play of the game to Brashad Perriman for about 20 yards or so. But then poor execution leads to them having to kick a field goal. And that's the issue, that when the team gets down there, they have such a struggle this year so far of turning. When they get down in the red zone, they can't score touchdowns. And it really hurt them on that first drive, because you go up 7-0, and then the whole game could have maybe changed. Instead, you have to kick a field goal. Green Bay goes down, takes the lead, and then after that, they really didn't have a drive until right before the half, and then the Brashad Perriman fumble happened when Perriman was in field goal range. It just, they didn't. I don't even know if they. At times they did move the ball well. It just seems like they are just inept in being able to score points, and a lot of it is self-inflicted. I think that's the frustrating thing, is a lot of it is, like you said, the penalties, the turnovers. Russell Gage's fumble was at the 50-yard line. It's go ahead.
We got to see the greatest run of the TB12 era. All right, an 18-yard gain by nobody else except the 45-year-old quarterback out there doing his thing. That is negated by a penalty on your left tackle. Like, it's
to be fair, if he doesn't hold him, Brady's sacked. So
I mean, that's fair. That is
So,
fair.
This kind of reminds me of 2018, where the Bucs would continue to go down the field. There would be a back-breaking penalty, a drive-killing incompletion, or the quarterback not doing what he needed to do at that time. But I'm not comparing the two, but I'm just saying it's what it reminds me of, where they start to get momentum, they start to get a rhythm, and then you have a turnover, or wide receiver doesn't catch the ball like he's supposed to. It doesn't do his job, and then you're off the field. It's 3 and out. You're putting your defense back on the field again, and again, this is something that they have to get this fixed. I know that we're gonna and have they announced who is going to get cut with Mike Evans coming back?
They have not yet announced it. No, they need to make a move, I believe, by 4 p.m. today, but they haven't announced what the roster is.
I believe they called up Geiger for this game, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah, but he's not on the active roster. Okay. Technically, when you're suspended, Mike Evans didn't count towards a roster spot. So
right. Okay.
Yeah, and do you guys feel like Scotty Miller? I was really disappointed. Since he's been announced as a being on a 53-man roster, even on special teams, I haven't seen where he's shined this year.
Yeah, he's just he's just not good.
Yeah,
they're trying to give him every opportunity, and he can't seem to grab it at all.
Well, and that's the issue, at least that I have, is that this wasn't the first game where Scotty Miller was in a situation where he kind of had to step up a little bit. Last week against New Orleans, he had a couple of targets he couldn't reel in, and granted, they were tough catches. You still got to make those catches. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're an NFL football player.
If you want to hold on to a spot in this receiver room, you gotta make those.
Yeah, catches. And I mean, he was tripping over his feet last week. Just could not find anything at all this week. I don't know if Scotty gets cut today. That would be a surprise to me. To be honest with you,
I don't know. I don't know if he lasts the whole year, though.
I don't know if he lasts the whole year. I don't know if it happens today. Maybe it does. Maybe by the time this releases, he's already off of the roster, and we'll be doing another podcast about that. But I'd like to think he sticks around a couple of more weeks. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but when you are battling injury, the way this receiver room is, you need all the help you can get. And even if it's not great help, he is there. He is under contract, and they're gonna figure something out until they can.
Yeah, I like that Tom Brady was continuing to try to get the ball over to Cole Beasley. You could tell he's not in football shape, but he was out there playing. It was obvious he was gassed on that last series that he was in. You could tell he was gassed, and I'm excited to see what he can do. I think he'll be on the roster. I don't think they move on from him. I think he's too valuable. He's somebody that Tom Brady could potentially go to. So. There were a lot of goods, but then there are a lot of things that they just need to clean up. Clock management, some play calling. So there's just a lot they need to work on, but it's not all doom and gloom, jump out the window, as a lot of fans think that it is.
And the reason it's not all doom and gloom for me is because I do believe that when this offense, hopefully it does, but when this offense gets healthy, like they're gonna naturally be better because Mike Evans is a really good player. Julio Jones, when healthy, is a really good player. Chris Godwin, when on the field, is a really good player. So naturally, like, will there be things they have to clean up? Yeah, like the offensive line, Luke Gedeke and Robert Hainsey will need to stay consistent when Donovan Smith returns, and they're still going to need more probably out of their tight ends receiving wise. They're going to need to run the ball a bit more consistently. And obviously clean up the penalties. But as terms of like weapons, like that's not really what I'm concerned about. Like naturally, like by week 6 or 7, like this offense will look better. Like I don't have too many concerns about that. But it's just like you said, with games like this, only scoring 12 points, that hurts you. And in a huge NFC game like that, it's tough. And like I said, it's unfortunate that they were down as many guys as they were. Now, there were some encouraging signs out of it. Russell Gage, aside from the fumble, looked like the guy they paid $10 million to. He finally looked like that guy, had a great grab in the end zone for the touchdown.
He got lit up, man.
Yeah, he did.
I was glad to see he held on to that. Good touchdown for Russell Gage.
But the one thing, before we move on to a little different part of the offense or defense, whatever, they need to still get better on third down, and it's not good enough. So this is from Greg Allman last night. The Bucs went 2 for 11 on third down today, and both of those conversions were on 3rd and 1. Brady on third down was 4 for 7, 23 yards, and 2 sacks, and he threw to the touchdown to Gage in the last minute. The yards needed on those 9 misses were 1, 5, 12, 12, 10, 9, 13, 7, and then the 30 one after they got the penalty. And but the 12, 12, 10, 9, 13, that's too long. Like it's too long to get. It can't continue that way. And a lot of it's because of what they do on first and second down. They essentially almost seem to like waste some downs, and that's where the play calling has to be better and has to be more consistent.
Yeah, I wanted to mention briefly the offensive line. I know they were going into this with a makeshift offensive line. You missed your left tackle. They were okay, but Brandon Walton, we talked with Sean King earlier this week about how longevity is going to start to expose some of these backup guys. And honestly, I think that's what we can sum up what happened to him that night.
Growing pains. Yeah, there's going to be ups and downs.
And then,
but
go ahead.
Real quick, these are meaningful reps for these guys. These guys aren't going to be starters all year in certain positions. You will have your starters back at some point. And these guys they'll benefit from games like this, moving down the line. I don't want to give out participation trophies or, but I just feel like them getting out here playing and getting worked or whatever gives them something to work on. And it makes them, a better part of the offensive line, as you get into the middle part of the season, going into the back end of the season.
Yeah, 3 sacks allowed on the day. Tom Brady going down. That's on the higher end of, a Tom Brady offensive line here in Tampa Bay. So hopefully with the standard they have set for themselves, they can be a little more well-equipped next week as they face off against Kansas City. One last thing I wanted to talk about on the offensive side of the ball. Evan, you talked about the efficiency rating. And, I mean, just looking at third down, that's what's going to stick out more than anything. 2 for 11. Yeah. What did you make of the play calling?
You're not going to win many football games going 2 for 11 on third down.
No, you're not. You're not going to win many football games doing that, turning the ball over twice the way that they did. And I know that play calling is obviously going to be limited. You don't have quite as many pages when you're missing a Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Julio Jones. I mean, there were no superstars on this offense. You could consider Leonard Fournette that, but they shut him down.
But does that mean you run a triple reverse?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. Listen. I wanted to get your thoughts on the play calling. It was pretty interesting how it didn't seem like, what stuck out most to me is that there were so many times where this offense just could not find any rhythm at all. But lo and behold, with a chance to win the game and about 3 minutes left on the clock, Tom Brady takes this offense 89 yards, and he made it look easy. I mean, Tom Brady running the 2-minute drill is literally one of the best to ever do it.
It's a work of art.
It's... Man, oh man. That play, though, that little reverse end around fake flea flicker, I don't know what they were going for, but it was a loss of 12 yards, and it pissed me off more than anything else they did on Sunday.
Yeah, I didn't hate the play calling like all day. Like I didn't hate it. They threw the ball more. They threw the ball more on first down. Like I think there was some progress made in terms of that. It wasn't as frustrating for me to watch. They weren't trying to me in the first half, maybe a little like trying to force the run, but in the second half they made some adjustments, particularly in that 2 minute stretch when Perryman had the fumble. Like they were pretty good, and they got away from forcing the run and force feeding it. So I think that helped. So I didn't hate the play calling. I think out of all 3 games, this was actually probably my favorite play calling game. That's not saying much, but in terms of just game plan. However, I understand trying to get something going. I understand trying to mix it up. I get that. But when your offense is struggling and you're near midfield at that point, that was after I believe the Darden 25-yard catch. You're struggling to get anything going, and it's getting late in the game. You can't do that type of play. You know how many things have to go right for that play to be successful? It's too many, especially when your offense hasn't even scored a touchdown, hasn't come anywhere close to the end zone. That's just dumb. So I hope that today they took that page in the playbook and just ripped it out, and it'll never see the light of day again. But I didn't have an issue with the play calling outside of a few things, and that being obviously the biggest one. That was pitiful.
Now, I could see that if the Bucks offense has had the defense on their heels all game, that's where you pull that play out. I just thought that it was ill-advised to run that play at this point. You're moving the ball a little bit. I mean, I would consider doing that at a different time. It's just not. It wasn't the ideal time to call that play. I don't hate it. I just don't like where they utilized it at. And it's just one of those things. Again, I heard a lot of people didn't like, Byron Leftwich and his play calling, and I heard a lot of people complaining. But you look at the missed opportunities that wide receivers had, dropping passes, and rounding off routes, not running clean routes. I mean, there's a lot more to this than just Byron Leftwich didn't call the right play or the O-line didn't do what they needed to do. Everybody. There's enough blame for everybody.
They got to execute. Everybody's got to execute.
Exactly. Do your job.
Yeah, Byron Leftwich isn't out there running the routes and catching the ball and throwing the ball, making the decisions for Tom Brady. You got to execute. So it's partly play calling, but it's also like the players just got to do their jobs, just like you said.
Because if you think about it, and they execute, they make that catch. We're not talking about Byron Leftwich. You can't mention him because the player did his job. Yeah, and that's because it's on both sides of the.
Yeah, you'd be saying what a momentum swing, and that's a great call. And if it works, it's a great call. But if it doesn't, it's a boneheaded call.
Well, it's a funny thing too, and I guess this argument is in favor to people who, either want to credit or discredit Byron. I guess it could go both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it too. But a lot of people on Twitter this weekend were saying, look at this offense early on. I know they've been working with spare parts, but when you compare a Bruce Arians offense to a Byron Leftwich offense, and people who just assume that Bruce Arians had nothing at all to do with the offensive game plan or what went into it, look at what's happening right now. I mean, the Bucs are in the bottom half of offensive production in the NFL. And yeah, I know it's early in the year. We got a lot of football left to play, and it's almost like something we have to put on every single take on this show. Health is always a factor, but yeah, the guys out there just did not play well.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing, and John Ledyard brought up a good point when he was talking about the play calling thing, and he said, while that play call is terrible, people need to think about what has changed. Byron's offense last year was very pass heavy in neutral situations. It was a lot pass heavier on first down than people think. Best first down EPA/play team in the NFL. So what changed? He said there are only 3 realistic possibilities, and I agree with all 3. He said Byron secretly always wanted to do things differently than Bruce, and he said not likely. And he said Bowles is pushing/mandating emphasis on the run, possible, and the Bucs' injuries at wide receiver and the O-line are changing Leftwich's approach, possible. I think it's a combination of Bowles wanting to run the ball a bit more and also the injuries sort of hampering what they want to do. I don't think Leftwich wants to do anything different than Arians or whatever. But I think it's Bowles wanting to be a little less risky. He doesn't want Brady throwing the ball 45, 50 times a game. But I also think their offensive game plans would be different if they had Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, Donovan Smith. They had all these guys out there. I think their game plans would be different. So it goes hand in hand with the players you have available, but also like Green Bay, they were banged up. They were banged up and they were able to scheme guys open. The problem with the Bucs scheme, and this isn't going to change until, way down the line when this whole regime is gone after this era is done, basically. And maybe it won't even change then, but the Bucs scheme relies on talent over actual scheme. So the Bucs, Mike Evans has to win his one-on-one to get open. Chris Godwin has to win his one-on-one to get open. The Packers, they're running pick plays, they're doing this, they're doing that to get guys open. The Bucs just don't do that. And the Bucs offense, they've been a top offense the last 3 years. So it's worked. It's just the issue is when you have the lack of, star talent at the wide receiver position, when you're down Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, Scotty Miller ain't winning one-on-ones consistently. Like you're going to have to scheme a guy like him open, and the Bucs offense that's not how it's designed.
And he's not a physical receiver. And you could tell that yesterday, the way they were moving him around and putting hands on him, and he was getting frustrated with that as well. So you got to factor in who he is. Now, does Tyler Johnson, I know it's all past, it's spilt milk. I understand. Physically, I think I always thought that Tyler Johnson was a lot more of a physical receiver than Scotty Miller is. Scotty Miller is more of a finesse guy. Run him on a 9 route, and that's kind of what you got him for.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think and the Bucs were at the beginning of the season. The Bucs thought that they were, good at wide receiver depth. That's crazy. I think Ledyard also pointed out, like, the Bucs have gone above and beyond to make sure the end of last season doesn't happen. And yet it just, with the Evans suspension and the Godwin injury and the Jones injury, here they are again. And I think the main reason why they kept Miller over Johnson was because of special teams. They were thinking that either Miller or Johnson would even see the field, really, especially this early in the season. So, I think probably if they had a do-over, they probably would keep Tyler Johnson. But, it is what it is. Just like you said, it's in the past, and got to move on from it. But, the receivers as a whole, really, I would say only really Russell Gage is the only guy who really did his job good.
Hindsight is always 2020. So when you talk about, potentially letting guys go that you're going to want back later, well, when stuff shakes out the way that it has for Tampa Bay, the easy answer is they should have held on to Tyler Johnson. Oh, everyone knew that. But go ahead.
Oh, no, real quick before we move on, I just want to say I thought Brady was really good. Under the circumstances, Brady was really good. He kept them in that game. He kept the offense at least alive somewhat. Just like we said, there's only a few things Brady got him in the field goal range and Perryman fumbled. That's not on him. Brady got him to the 50 and Gage fumbled. That's not on him. A few guys dropped some balls. That's not on him. I thought he was pretty good. Was it a perfect game? No, but he only had 11 incompletions. I thought he was really good. And like you said, the 2-minute drill that he had before the half and at the end of the game, that's why you get Tom Brady, right? For moments like that. And unfortunately, the 2-point play and everything, we can get into the delay game, but it's just the 2-point conversion. It's a 50-50 shot, and it is what it is.
Well, when you handicap yourself with a delay a game, which is a little tic tac, and it sets you back 5 more yards, it's going to make it even more.
Here's
of a gamble.
The thing: on the 2-point conversion, it was a run. Do we really think they were? Do we really think they were going to get in the end zone there? They were being stuffed on the 50, run all night long.
50. No, you're right. You're right.
But they should have passed it, and it was a run.
Let me ask you this. We'll probably find out on Aaron Rodgers Tuesday on the Pat McAfee show tomorrow afternoon. But Aaron Rodgers had mentioned to the media that, sometimes the Bucs show some things on the Jumbotron that they just shouldn't show at home. And everybody's grasping at straws to try and understand what he meant by that. But it seems like the impression is that he got some sort of advantage by something the Buccaneers showed on the Jumbotron inside Raymond James Stadium, and so much so to where Todd Bowles even addressed it today and said that he's going to have a conversation with the director over there to figure out what they can and cannot show on the Jumbotron. any idea at all what that may have been.
Maybe it was an angle of Leftwich talking, or maybe an angle of, I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe a certain angle of the sideline or something that you shouldn't show, or something with Brady's hand signal, something. I don't know. I have no idea.
Ironically, that they've played in 2020, they played Green Bay a couple of times, and this has been pretty much the same regime. As much as I dislike Aaron Rodgers, and I don't, it is what it is. The guy is super intelligent. He's where he is for a reason. I'm sure that he's astute enough to have caught something and then, kind of honed in on it and caught it again, maybe. And then he knew what to look for, going into this game right here. So, like you, I don't know what it is, but I'm sure that it's probably been there from, the time that Arians regime has been here. So it's kind of that was my take on it.
Let's take a look at the other side of the football for Tampa Bay. We got a lot more good to talk about with the defense as opposed to the offense, but they are not mistake-free, and I'll get to that here in a second. Your leading tackler on the day was Mike Edwards with 9 tackles, 4 assisted tackles. Antoine Winfield had 6. Jamel Dean had 5 tackles and 1 assisted tackle. He also had an interception, which was negated by a penalty. Now, the Bucs were able to take the football away one time at the goal line, which I believe prevented this game from becoming 21-3 at some point.
Yeah. If it was 21-3, you could have wrapped things up.
Vita Vea drops back in coverage, levels the running back, forces the fumble, and the Buccaneers recover. Thank God that they did. And then, of course, the other turnover they had was the interception. And I want to say that was Logan Ryan, right?
Logan Ryan.
That. Yeah, incredibly athletic play on his part. And then the deep ball Jamel Dean interception, which would have been awesome. But again, another back-breaking penalty.
Well, I will say, however, Rodgers only threw that ball because it was offside.
Yeah, because he knew it was a free play.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, I know it was a rough start for this defense, but got to be happy with the way that they kind of hunkered down there in the second half. Pass rush wasn't quite as productive as you would like it to be. Only 1 sack on the day, and it was Logan Hall. It was a coverage sack through and through.
In a big moment, too. And
you definitely needed it. Playmakers make plays, but I don't know. What are your overall thoughts on the defense, Evan?
Here's the thing. I thought the pass rush was actually decent. I thought Rodgers did a really good job of avoiding a lot of it. He had that one play, the
shovel pass
on the 3rd down conversion. Yeah. I thought they had him a few more times, and he did a really good job. This time he was better prepared, I think, for the Todd Bowles pass rush than he was 2 years ago. So and I tweeted out, I said, that's the difference between an elite quarterback and who the Bucs have played so far. I think Dak Prescott's a good quarterback. He's not an elite one. I think Jameis Winston's a decent quarterback. He's not an elite one. Aaron Rodgers is elite. Like, that's the difference. Those guys can make those plays. So the Bucs didn't seem ready for it at first. They didn't seem ready for anything at first. But again, with another Greg Allman tweet, said it comes in a loss, but the way the Bucs defense clamped down on the Packers is wild. The first 3 drives for the Packers were 75 yards, 71 yards, 60 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The next 8 drives were 90 net yards, 7 punts, and an interception. So the defense was night and day. Sort of after that Aaron Jones fumble, the defense was just night and day. And without the defense playing that way, the Bucs would get blown out. So the defense literally almost saved the day and almost won the game for the Bucs because they kept them in it long enough to be able to give the Bucs a chance to tie it. So I think there's a lot of obviously this Packers wide receiver room isn't the greatest, but being able to hold an elite quarterback like that to only 14 points when he gets 14 points on his first 2 drives, that's certainly impressive. And I think you got to talk about now is the Bucs is clearly a top 5 defensive unit in the entire league.
Yeah, I love the defense. They really came out. Logan Hall is playing better than I expected him. Joe Tryon is continuing to improve, and we saw a lot of plays where he's closer and closer. He's getting closer to getting home. I love what the Bucs secondary has done. This was a question mark in the offseason. What is this secondary going to look like? And they've stepped up to the challenge. And again, I think this game against Kansas City, we're going to really get a good opportunity to see how they rebound from this game, and if they can come back and play better. And the fact that, knock on wood, they've stayed injury pretty much for the most part not getting dinged up or nicked up. I mean, that's definitely helping them as well. Pass rush, like you said, I know you probably want to see more out of it. I thought they did a great job considering Aaron Rodgers gets the ball out quickly, and the way that they had designed a lot of the plays, they had the defense on their heels. And the one thing that I will say, and I don't think it gets mentioned enough, Todd Bowles making adjustments. And in Bucs history, I can't think of a defensive coordinator or a play caller going back to the Super Bowl era that's able to come in and make adjustments, make positive adjustments, and make them work. So what we've seen from Todd Bowles so far is positive, where he's gone out and made adjustments, and they've kind of settled down and done what they've needed to do.
And I think the adjustments thing is clear because in all 3 games now, the opening drive for the opposing offense has resulted in points. The Cowboys kicked the field goal, the Saints kicked the field goal, the Packers scored a touchdown. But then, especially in the Cowboys and Saints game, Cowboys and Saints didn't get nothing after that. And then the Packers only scored 1 more touchdown after that. So clearly, Todd Bowles said he liked his defense to start a little bit faster, but you're right about that adjustments. That first drive could be a little rough, but right after that first drive, if they make 1 or 2 tweaks, and it really seems to work. So hopefully they can keep that up for a full season.
Yeah, to move on from some pieces over the offseason on the defensive line, Ndamukong Suh, Jason Pierre-Paul kind of being phased out of that. But I'm going to be honest with you, maybe this is a radical take here. We're only 3 games into the season, but this feels like what this defense has been building up to since Todd Bowles and the rest of this coaching staff arrived way back in 2019. You know what I mean? Putting all the pieces together, drafting your guys correctly, building that nucleus of young, talented players, and then guys like Vita Vea just continuing to get better. I mean, this is the result of all of that, but one name who gets left out of the mix for another week in a row. We talk a lot about this 3-safety set for Tampa Bay and how well that has looked. Well, that leaves Sean Murphy-Bunting, the odd man out there in the secondary. Another week, another 0 snaps for number 23.
It's almost becoming not even a topic anymore.
I know. I mean, we should just move on and say that, listen, he's going to be riding the pine until he's not. But, I mean, Gene, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Did you have any opinions on SMB coming into this season? Know that he fought some injury last year, and it was incredibly tough to bounce back on top of a rotating defensive backfield. But where has he been, and what kind of expectations do you have for him?
Honestly, you've got the hot group out there right now, and that's kind of what you want to roll with, and you don't want to disrupt that. I mean, football is very delicate, even though it's a rough sport. If you disrupt the balance that you have on a defense, it could take a while to get fixed, or it may not get fixed at all. So I think that with this being the NFL, he will get opportunities to play. You're talking about 17 games in a season. He'll eventually see the field, and I'm good with where the Bucs are right now. I would just leave things alone. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's unfortunate for him, but I mean, with the way they're playing, it's like you said, you don't want to mess up a good thing, because you mess up chemistry like that, and you just never know if you're going to be able to get that magic back. So, real quick about Vita Vea, he needs to be better. Yeah, he forced the fumble, but I saw a few times there was offensive guards putting him on his back. I had never seen that before. I remember a run up the middle. AJ Dillon almost ran him over. I don't know what's going on, but he needs to be better, because I mean the run defense hasn't been as good, and the run defense not being as good, but the pass defense being better. The NFL is a pass first league, so I'll take that, but. The run defense starts with him. It starts with him up the middle. And right now he's not doing as good of a job as he has in the past. So I don't know what's going on. I don't have any long-term concerns, but in the short term, he's got to be better. He definitely has to play better. And I think once he does, I think, there could be no stopping this defense, because once they're able to, the Packers were getting 4 or 5 yards on every single run, it seemed like. And once you can sort of eliminate those and turn those into 2 or 3 yards on every play, it puts the defense in even more advantageous situations where the pass rushers can tee off, more turnovers can be forced. So I think it's that run defense, and Vita Vea can get back to somewhat form. I think the defense could be even better, which is kind of hard to believe right now with the start they've had.
Looking at the box score of this game is so funny to me because you had just mentioned the running backs, and we had talked about the concern coming into this game that, hey, if Green Bay is going to move the ball effectively, it's probably going to start and stop with that trio of running backs they had back there. And between Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, both of them 12 carries split right down the middle. Aaron Jones, 36 yards, 3 yards per carry, and A.J. Dillon, 32 yards, 2.7 yards per carry. So I know we talked a lot about how in the first half, it really felt like Green Bay was able to just run that clock, dominate the time of possession. A couple of Bucs mistakes tuned in there are going to help, but I'd say in the grand scheme of things, I cannot feel entirely upset with, 68 yards on the ground between two pretty damn good running backs. I mean, they were a lot more effective against other teams.
Yeah, it just, like I said, it just, sometimes it just puts the Packers offense. The reason the Packers were able to convert so many third downs early was because a lot of more third and shorts. Like the Bucs had to deal with third and longs, the Packers didn't, and a lot of that's because the Packers were able to get 4 or 5 yards on first down, and the Bucs just weren't. So that was the story of the game real early, and it luckily it didn't continue for the defense, but the Bucs offense still struggled.
Yeah, and I honestly love the way the rotation. Nunez Roches doesn't get enough credit. You had a lot of different players rotating in.
Dejan Sennett had a few plays. Yeah, he stepped up a little bit too.
So I'm loving this line. I like how they're able to rotate guys in and keep everybody fresh. I mean, it was 100 degrees on the field. So, and you're talking about, I think it was like 81% humidity or something like that.
Oh, at the beginning of the game, it was, yeah.
And bro, I'm here to tell you that will, I don't care who you are, that'll wear you down.
I don't know if you caught it on the TV broadcast, but Packers had players throwing up all over the sidelines. Alan Lazard,
after the touchdown, he threw up.
Yeah, Alan Lazard blew chunks on the sidelines, and I feel like, people who are down here, like, they know what that Florida heat is all about.
Oh yeah.
But when a team like Green Bay comes to town, or when another team from up north who isn't used to that heat comes to town, another thing that plays a factor. Not a lot of people overthink about this, but when the Buccaneers decided to wear white on white this week, they did it for a reason. Because I saw somewhere, somebody had said that the Green Bay Packers, in particular, their dark green jersey that they have, the average amount of heat that it adds to your body is like 10, 11, 12 degrees. So when it's already 91 degrees outside with a humidity of over 80%, and you're down there wearing 20 pounds of pads, there's a bunch of guys on the field. And Raymond James, unless you were on the, I think it's the west side. I think unless you were on the west side of the stadium, if it's a 4:00 game for the first quarter, you're going to be in the sun. Yeah. And down there on the field, I think it wasn't until after halftime until they got some shade coverage, and you could tell those guys were feeling it. It was rough in there.
Yeah, but real quick before we wrap up, let's just get to the final unit. Special teams. Jake Camarda has been impressive.
The weapon.
He has been impressive this year. Love Bradley Pinion, friend of the show, but there's a clear upgrade there that they have in Jake Camarda. He was pinning the Packers deep, not allowing really any returns because there's enough hang time on the balls. He's been really good, and obviously Ryan Suckup making his 2 field goals, doing his job. So overall, special teams was good.
I hate to give Green Bay some more credit here, but I also thought their punter kicked ass. Bucs were facing a very long field more times than not, and that was just another part of the offensive frustration. It was an uphill battle all day.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It was, it's just, you kind of knew that if the Packers had the ball at the 40, you're like, oh, yeah, the Bucs are going to start this drive from the 10.
Yeah,
exactly. It was frustrating for sure.
Yeah, Jake Camarda, he is the walking weapon, man. And I love the coffin corner punts, and he's actually pinning, it's strategic. And it's giving the special teams a chance to get down and cover. Whereas, again, Pinion did his thing here while he was here, but he wasn't doing the special teams really any favors when you consider hang time and where he's placing the ball.
Ryan Suckup also 2 for 2 on the afternoon. The only reason it was a 1-possession game down there at the end of it, he gets 6 points for Tampa Bay. Continues to have a pretty good season to start things out. Only has 1 miss on the year, and that was against Dallas week 1.
Yep.
Yeah, cannot be mad with that. So as we wrap things up, I'll toss it to both of you. This is like a it's hard to say it's a regular segment on the show because we kind of just do it whenever we feel like it. But Evan, do you have a take bag this week?
Not really. I kind of said a lot of my takes there. There's some dispute over like the play clock thing, like whether it was at 20 or 25 seconds for the 2-point conversion.
Doesn't matter. You got to be ready.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Real quick, well, I guess my one take would be this might be a little controversial because technically, yeah, like you're more likely to score from the 2 than the 7, but for a 2-point conversion, I feel like you'd almost rather it maybe be from the 7 because an offense would have more space to work with.
I mean, if you're going to draw it up the way that they did on that makeshift play, I guess you'd want a little bit more room, but we had agreed earlier it was going to be an inside handoff.
Yeah, it was gonna be, and I don't think it was gonna work. We don't know, but I don't think it was gonna work. But like I said, I think like, yeah, giving the offense more space wasn't the awful thing. Obviously, they didn't do it intentionally. Like they didn't take the delay game intentionally, but yeah, it's a shame. And I do think, like I said at the beginning, my one final thought is if the Bucs have the thing about it, everybody's like, oh, if the Bucs just had Mike Evans, they would have won easily. The Bucs had Mike Evans for the entire Dallas game, and they had him for 90% of the New Orleans game. The offense wasn't going crazy in that game, so I don't know why you'd say, the offense would be so much different. But I do think if they had Mike Evans and Julio Jones, if they had both those guys, which Todd Bowles says Julio Jones could have played, but he didn't. I'm not a fan of rushing guys back, but just like we talked about, this is a big seeding game potentially in the conference, so I'm not sure why you wouldn't want to push them to play. But if they had Mike Evans and Julio Jones, I think they would have squeaked out a win. So there's my final thought. They lost, so whatever.
I will respectfully disagree. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Gene.
Oh, no. Oh, go ahead.
I mean, maybe because I'm the biggest Mike Evans mark on the planet. And this is not new. All right. Everybody is the biggest fan of Mike Evans this week, but I want to let you guys know that I was 13 was my favorite player before it was cool. I think that just having, either Mike or Julio,
it would have helped.
No, it doesn't drastically change their production on offense because it probably would have looked more like week 1 and week 2. But those extra 2, 3, or 4 chances a game where he can get open and make a play and Brady sees it, maybe they end up in the end zone. I mean, Brady threw over top 2 or 3 times. I think he made an attempt. One of them was to Cameron Brate, which was incomplete. The other one, I want to say, was Russell Gage. I was a little sloshy at the game, so I don't entirely remember. But the fact of the matter is, neither of those guys could step up there and make that play.
It would have helped. I'm not saying it would.
It would have helped. I think if they have one of those 3 wide receivers that is a true wide receiver 1 that you can count on for 60 minutes, I think it would have given them enough to not have to play the way that they did. But hey, they lost either way. It doesn't even matter.
They lost.
I think they've underutilized their tight end room. You've got Kyle Rudolph, you've got Cameron Brate, Kate Otten. You've got some guys that, you're in the red zone. Why not utilize them? I know you're down Mike Evans, but these are guys. You look at Rudolph, he's experienced. You look at Cameron Brate, he's experienced in the red zone. These are guys that you really need to utilize.
Well, they already had they have their tight end in the building because
Rob
Gronkowski was in attendance. So
he
was there, yeah.
All I'm saying is there needs to be some semblance of creativity when you're down like this and this game means a lot. Yeah, a run, I guess that's okay, but there are other opportunities. Tom Brady can, pretty much dissect the defense. And, if you're getting the ball out quickly, I don't know. That's probably why I'm not a coach, but I just felt like they really, the tight end room has been very underutilized in certain instances of the game.
Yeah. We talked about it before on the show. Like they're not getting much from the tight end right now. And it's something that's,
but when you're talking about big bodies and you're talking about the end zone, I think that there are opportunities there that, there are mismatches out there that can be had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Let's look ahead just a little bit because, Gene, I want to get your 2 cents on this. Huge game for Tampa Bay next week. It is another game inside Raymond James Stadium, and this is a team that over the last 2 years has a reputation for playing well at home. And I hate to say it, but depending on who's available, an 0-2 start inside Raymond James Stadium certainly doesn't seem out of the question. But offensively, what's got to change? If you get somebody healthy, that's obviously one thing. But if you roll out this offense that you have the first 3 weeks of the year, even with Julio Jones and Mike Evans out there, I just don't think it's going to get it done against Pat Mahomes and company.
Do your job. Do your job. I mean, the ball's on your fingertips. You got to catch it. I mean, I'm not, making excuse for Tom Brady, but there have been instances where the wide receiver room has not done him any favors. Getting Donovan Smith back will be huge. I'm not sure if he's going to be playing or not, but then that helps you with your run blocking. I mean, he's a monster on run blocking. That helps Leonard Fournette, to do a little bit more than what he's been doing. And after watching that Kansas City game against the Colts, I think that, you can run on Kansas City, to be honest. And again, I think that, the play calling has to get a little bit better, and they need to overall manage the game a lot better on offense. They need to execute better. And these are things that I know will come, and I'm hoping it starts with Kansas City.
Yeah,
Evan, we'll get into it on the game preview, but your closing thoughts.
Yeah, no, and just looking ahead, execute. That's the number one thing for me. Yeah, just execution. I didn't think penalties absolutely destroyed them yesterday.
No, but timing could not.
They were in the wrong place.
yeah. But in terms of the number of them, it was okay. But I think it all comes down to execution, and they didn't execute in the key spots on third downs. They couldn't convert, and you go 2 for 11 on third down next week, and you're not going to win. So you need to execute more specifically, execute on third down, and keep those chains moving.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Thank you so much to everybody for checking out the show. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. And, of course, Buccaneer news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs_daily. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. And check out his written work at BucsNation.com. What have you got in the cooker this week?
I'm going to be doing the prediction reviews again. My prediction was way off. I predicted that Leonard Fournette would find the end zone for the first time this season, and I think I said like over 80 rushing yards. But shout out to James Hill, Mr. Bucs Nation, because he said Russell Gage would have a touchdown, maybe 2 touchdowns, but he was pretty close on his prediction, even though he stole mine. I was going to do Gage, but he got to it first, but whatever.
Shout out to our very special friend, Gene from Buc What Ya Heard. Gene, where can the people find you and your awesome content?
You can go out on YouTube. There at Buc What Ya Heard, on Twitter at Buc What Ya Heard. You follow me, I'll follow you back. And you guys will be on next week, I'm hoping.
Yes. Yeah, I know for sure I will be. We'll figure that out. We'll touch base and get all that stuff, but I really am looking forward to it. Thanks for coming on, dude. It's always fun chopping it up with you, talking Bucs football. It's just a very natural conversation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I enjoy it, man. Oh, and to the folks in the Bay Area, please be safe.
Yes.
These hurricanes are no joke. If you're asked to evacuate, please evacuate. You can replace property. You can't replace lives. So just please be careful out there.
Yeah, very, very true. Now, contingent on said hurricane, the next time we talk to you guys should be Friday for our Week 4 game preview. Sean King will be joining us for that one, so stay tuned for that. Maybe we'll sneak in a podcast between now and then as well. Just have to wait and see. But we'll keep you updated. Social media, best place to go for all of that stuff. Last but not least, you can find myself, Instagram and Twitter at Retticus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. I didn't comment much on it, but it was my first time back in Ray J this Sunday for the first time in a while. And I got to tell you, there is nothing better than being surrounded by my people. I mean, the largest attendance number in the history of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers organization. They even highlighted some people who had season tickets for 50 years because they put down a commitment in 1972 to help lobby the NFL put a franchise in Tampa Bay. And here they are 50 years later. They were highlighted as the fans of the game. It was an awesome experience. If you are able to catch a Bucs game this year, I highly recommend it. An incredible place to be. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off for my co-host, Evan Wanish, and our very special guest, Gene. We will catch you guys later. Until then, and as always, go Bucs.